Hi again, here we are to talk about JavaScript, and I'd like to continue with this magnifier example. And in the last video, we set up the magnifier where we can sort of drag it. It's not quite working, but it's close. And so why don't we try and complete it? So here's what we're going to do. Okay, now we've got a problem because the page X and page Y values that we're getting from our mouse event are relative to the upper left corner here, but we want to move this object here at the position of the cursor, right? So we kind of have a an offset there that we need to work with, right? So let's switch to our JavaScript here. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to modify the X and Y values to take into account the offset for the position of our element here. So essentially the thing that we're dragging is this image large, and it's inside container, right? So if we want to find the offset or the difference between the upper left corner of container and the upper left corner of the page, right, which would be the distance from here to over here, right? Okay, jQuery provides a property for that, and it's called offset. So what we're going to do is we're going to say var, how about offset equals and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the offset of container dot offset, right? And that'll return the offset. And offset has two properties. It has a left and a top, okay? So what we'll do now is we'll say, how about x equals x minus offset dot left, okay? And then we'll say y equals y minus offset dot top. Okay, so this will get the offset on the x, and we'll modify x, with the offset, and then we'll modify y with the offset, and then our x and y values here will be adjusted. Okay, so we'll save that, and we'll take a look at what it looks like now. Oh, so now when I drag, you can see if I click on the object and then I move, it snaps to the upper left corner. Now that's pretty good, but it's still a little weird, right? Because if I click inside here, maybe I want the magnifier to snap to the center of where the cursor is, right? So, and you might want to do this differently too, but you'll see here the offset is sticking us to the corner there, right? So that's pretty good, but the center is probably a lot better for us, right? So how can we work with that? Well, the size of the large image here is 100 pixels by 100 pixels, right? So we'll need to find that size and also include it in our offset, okay? So maybe we'll do this. We'll say minus 50 and minus 50, right? So this is half the size of our magnifier, okay? Oh, now it goes right to the center. You'll notice when I click and drag, it gives me this selection, like the text selection cursor, which is a little odd. Why don't we just do a quick fix for that too? So what I'm going to do here is, I think I'll just put it on container. I'm going to say WebKit. I'm using Chrome, so user, I think it's user select, like that, is none. Actually, maybe better, instead of user select none, why don't we do this? Why don't we actually do on the large image? Why don't we just give it a cursor that represents something? So why don't we just say cursor pointer? How about that? Maybe that's better, actually. I like this better. So we'll just change the cursor on this. And then now you can see I get the hand cursor, which actually I think that makes a lot more sense to me, right? That I think interactively, like that's kind of, I think people will understand that better. But anyway, so now we've got this thing dragging, right? And it's working pretty good. We can drag it outside. Well, maybe we can add some limits to stop it from getting outside there, but let's tackle the last problem here, okay? So the image inside here needs to shift. Like, when I put this thing in the upper corner here, that's correct, right? So this is the right area of this image that we're zooming in on, right? But as I move this way, the bigger image inside here needs to shift inside the magnifying area so that we're seeing this portion of it. Does that make sense, right? So this is what we want to do here, right? So how are we going to do that? So let's go back to our JavaScript here, right? And what we want to do is we want to set the background image property, okay? And actually, we want to set the background position, okay? So, and there's a couple properties, like if you, if we give it a little try here, like in our CSS, we can say, background, position, and you can set the background position bottom, center, left, top, right. You can also type in values. So I could say the background position is going to be, 10 pixels X and 10 pixels Y, okay? So this will be X and Y, like the X is always the first number, right? Oops, let me save that. So now you can see when I refresh, you can see if you look very carefully in the upper corner here, you can see this image inside here is offset by 10 pixels on the X and 10 pixels on the Y, okay? The image is wrapping, so I'm seeing, this edge right here come onto this end, and then as I move it down from the bottom, I'm getting like this edge here is coming onto the top, right? I did that again. I clicked on the wrong browser there. So let's go back here. Let's go to brackets, right? And so, let me take this background position property out, but what we want to do is we want to use this down in our JavaScript here. So as we drag, we're going to change the background position of the image, and it's going to slide around inside the magnifier and show us the area that we want to view, right? So we're going to remove that up here, right? And then you also saw that the image wrapped around. So maybe the wraparound isn't going to make sense in this context. So let's turn that off. So let's go back up to our image large properties and say background repeat, right? And say no repeat. Okay, so that image shouldn't repeat. Okay, so now let's look down here. We're gonna need a couple extra properties here. So I'm gonna rearrange this so we can see all the CSS properties. So we got CSS left and top. Now let's get the background image, right? So what's the background image gonna be? So I'm gonna say var. How about let's see, dx equals, and what this is going to be is it's going to be, I think it's going to be x times -2, okay? And dy equals y times -2, okay? Now, the reason for this is that we've got the x and y values here. I might have to adjust this a little bit, right, if I remember, but we've got the x and y properties here, and as we move across the image, right, let me go look here, right, as we move across the image, right, the small image in the background is half the size of our larger image, and as we move the magnifier from left to right, the image inside the magnifier, like that's filling this box here, has to move right to left. So as I drag this direction, the image inside here has to slide the opposite way, right? And it has to do it at 2 times the rate because the image is twice as big, okay? So in other words, if I place this box halfway across here, right, so that, if this is 500 pixels across and I put it at 250, then the image inside here has to move 500 pixels the opposite direction. And since this image is 1,000 across, it'll be halfway, right? And then they'll both match up at the halfway point, okay? So let me make sure I save that, right? And then we'll take a look. Oh wait, I forgot to set the property. Let's do that, right? So I created these two variables here, but I didn't actually use them. So let's add them here. So I've got my properties here. I got the curly brackets and the other curly bracket, and then I have the left comma and the top. Let's add another comma and say background position is, and now we got to put both values in here. So it's going to be dx plus, oops, I need the plus pixels, and then plus, and then I'll need a little space there. Plus dy plus pixels. Okay, so we're going to add a new property there. Let's save that. So dx, so this should say like 250 pixels space 122 pixels, right? Okay, as background position. So let's save that and refresh it here. Oh, there we go, right? So now as I drag across, you can see that the image inside here is kind of aligning, right? Now my image is off by a little bit, okay? It works pretty good here, but you can see it's aligning at the upper corner. Like if I want the magnifier to align, if I put it here, you can see that it's off by a little bit, and essentially it's off by the size of this box, right? So, really, like when I get to here, 50% across the box, right? This image should be 50 pixels further over. Do you kind of see that, right? Okay, because you can kind of see this shiny bit right here, right? It should be right there. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to offset this like a little bit more, right, to take care of the size of the box right here, the 50 pixels. So this is our number here, x times -2, and then why don't we subtract another 50 pixels from that and then do the same thing here, okay? So here's our calculation, that gets us to the left and top, but we want to center it inside the magnifier, so we need to offset by half the size of the magnifier, okay? So we'll save that, and then we'll give it a try here, and now you can see, oh look, it lines up right on the middle. Let's see if we can line up the corner here. Yeah, so that lines up just about in the center of the box. Actually, the border might throw that off by 2 pixels, but we won't worry about it right now. You could take that into account. Okay, so anyway, so there we go. There's our magnifier, right? And that was actually surprisingly little code to write for the magnifier. And it's pretty, fairly effective magnifier. So anyway, I hope that's interesting to you guys, and maybe you can find some use for this. And it was surprisingly little code to get a pretty interactive, interesting animation thing going on. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I hope that's helpful.